Buddy, I hope you are having a wonderful day. Before today's video, I just want to say that looking back at yesterday's video, I think it was a little bit rough, more of a live writing session than a real structured educational video. So hopefully it was still useful, but I do recognize that, and I continue to appreciate your kindness and support. And yesterday what we did, or at least what I did, was I planned my next academic year, right? And I thought that it would be good to discuss with you, to share with you a way to sort of like calculate how much you can do. Like we need to be realistic when we set up a publication strategy. Okay. All of us have targets, and sometimes these calculations are not only important for our publication strategy but also for our career strategy. Okay, so here are the three key numbers that will tell you or that will define your publication strategy. The first number is capacity. How much can you do? How much can you work? For me, I write for 3 hours a day. For 3 hours a day, I can carry three papers at the same time. Okay? Because normally papers are then going to be submitted. That means that I can actually carry 6 papers per year, because I write 3 papers, or I work on 3 papers, revise 3 papers, send them out, and get the revisions, write on those 3, send them out. And, I've been publishing since for 22 years now, or writing for 22 years, publishing for 22 years. So my first piece came out in 1999. And, when I've sort of managed to do this, okay? So, that's I know that's my capacity. Now, when I have more time to write, so when I have like 5 hours to write, this was before I did any sort of academic management job. And if you don't know, I'm now director of research in my institution, which is a lot of work. My capacity was between 4 and 5 papers. Okay. Now, how can you improve and expand your capacity? Basically, with co-authorships. Now, I tend to have a very leading role in the papers that I co-author, so these do not expand my capacity a lot. But I've been lucky enough to find some new co-authors recently that have taken a little bit more of a burden. So I have moved now from, I'd say, 3 papers at the same time to 4 papers at the same time because of co-authors. But the rule of thumb that I use is basically 7 papers per year, because sometimes you'll get like really tough reviews and you need to jump in. I normally only co-author with people that are more junior than I am, so sometimes I'll need to jump in and do a little bit more. So, but that's the main number. It's your capacity, right? So, and your capacity is basically the number of papers that you can work on per year times 2, because most of us get 2 review cycles per year, right? So so for me that number is 7. Could go to 8 if I'm working with more co-authors, could go to 6 if I'm doing more of that work on my own. Okay, so if you look at my publications for my writing plan for last year, right? So you can see I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 papers. This was published at the end of the year, but I had to include it in my planning for the year, obviously. And of these papers, this one, so 1, 2 has significant work from co-authors. Okay, so again, I was on 7, but in reality 6, because there were 2 papers where I was doing like 50% of the work, right? So that's your capacity. You need to be very realistic, and I would say pessimistic about this, because again, if we look at my data for last year, right, what I'll see is, what I'll do when I'm tracking my work is, if I take more time on a paper than I should, I'll just put it in red. Okay, so you see that some papers like require way longer than I was expecting, and that meant that I couldn't work on other stuff. So you need to take that into account. You need to be realistic with your capacity. I would say that I'll put it between, unless you're teaching a lot, I'll put it between 3 and 4 papers per cycle. So that's, I'd say 6 to 7 papers per year. If you're teaching a lot, this can go down to 2 papers, and this happened to me in my previous job before coming to USAG, where I was teaching 400 hours, and I was director of research as well. 400 hours a year. I was director of research as well, and there, I mean, I could only work on 1 paper, so I had 2 papers. But it's, I mean, if it is what it is, right? So I pulled it off. Anyway, so first thing is capacity. How many papers can you work on at the same time? Okay. Now, I find myself that I cannot write more than write, and by writing I mean typing words on paper, but also coding data and so on, much more than 5 hours a day. Then I'm not as fresh. The creativity doesn't work, doesn't come up so well. So there have been occasional days where I've actually written for 7 hours, but I mean, this is rare. So if you think about it, so the way I think about it is 3 papers is 2 hours, 2 hours, and then 1 hour. So that's 3 papers, right? Okay. So capacity, first number. Second number is hit rate. Okay. Here, I'm going to tell you something that sucks, but if you've been writing for a while, you know this. Hit rate of 50% is high. What's the hit rate? The hit rate are the papers that get into 2 rounds or more of revise and resubmit. Okay? That's the hit rate. So, because again, realistically, what happens is, if you get a paper that goes through 1 round of revise and resubmit, and then it's rejected, you're probably better off going and work on something else, and then go back to this paper at a later time. I remember I was at an Egos several years ago, and I was co-chairing with 2 other people, and one of them is a really senior scholar, and we're sitting down to start the session, and I noticed that he was sending a paper to a journal, and this was his dissertation paper. This guy had finished his dissertation 12 years ago. Okay, so I have one of those as well. I finished my dissertation in 2005. I have a paper that got 3 rounds of revise and resubmit at IMJ, and then is on the shelf. So anyway, so hit rate is basically, these are basically the papers that will survive the review process and will go on to be published. Okay, so for me, that rate is 50%. So half of my papers survive the revise and resubmit process and get published. This doesn't mean it's the first strike, but it's you send it to a journal, it's rejected, send it somewhere else, and it goes through. Okay, maybe send it again somewhere else, and then it goes through. But for me, that's 50%. That means that half of my papers will will have to be put on hold. Not necessarily 15 years. Sometimes it's a couple of years, but they'll have to be put on hold, and or the process will restart again. But you already invested like 3 years in the first process, so for practical reasons they're on hold. Okay, so 50% for me. What I heard is that it can be as bad as 30%, but 30% still means that if you are on a pipeline on 6 papers per year, 30% it's 2 papers. So you can still do it. Now, how can you improve your hit rate? Well, the easy way is you basically send overqualified applicants, right? So this basically means that you send papers that would be on a very top journal, you send it to a middle range journal, or papers for a middle range journal, you send it to a lower range journal. Okay, these journals tend to be niched into the quality of papers that they get, and if you send something better, the editors can be nicer to you. Sometimes not, but they may be nicer to you and try to help you along and be more developmental in the reviews. So that's a way to increase your hit rate. There's this rumor that if you work with senior scholars, networks, and so on, will increase your hit rate. That can happen for 1 or 2 papers, but it's not it's not a strategy that you can really follow systematically. So I'll discourage you from doing that. Okay. Other than that, writing good papers obviously increases your hit rate, and as I said repeatedly in videos, best way to write good papers is to have good data. So if you want a meritocratic way to increase your hit rate, focus on the quality of your data. And then finally, we have the length of publication cycle. Again, we need to be realistic, and this is not something that it's very easy to change. This is a constraint upon your field and the type of papers that you write. So in my field, general management and management information systems, ethnographic qualitative data papers are on a 5-year publication cycle. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. Like, each review cycle is a year, so the paper is 6 months on your side, 6 months on the journal side, and you get between 3 and 4 rounds of revise and resubmit. So that's 1 year to write a paper, 4 years out, so that's 5 years. There's nothing you can do for this. Well, you can do quantitative research, or you can change into fine. I don't know, but treat this as a constraint, and this is a key number to know. Okay, key number to know. This is out there. You can ask. I can tell you. What is a publication cycle for specific types of research. Whatever. This is out there. Okay, so this will give you your output. Okay, so basically my output is about 3 papers every 5 years. That's my output. I can get lucky and get 4. I can get unlucky and get 2, but roughly that's my output. Okay. How do I know? Well, it's the capacity, so 7 papers that I can carry on every year, 50% hit rate, and publication cycle. Now, obviously, again, if we look at when you have a pipeline like this, then the point of a pipeline is that this will increase because you're like doing this every year. So this means that once this is going, you can go to a paper a year perhaps, or even more, right? When your pipeline is going. This is when you're starting from 0, okay? And this is what happened to me when I joined the ESEG. Basically, I started from 0 because I had the 2 papers that I was carrying on before for my Quarterly and Organization Science that got published, and and I was busy with this. But So again, that's that's what I have. So if you go on my Scholar, okay, if you go to my Google Scholar and we sort this by year, then there's one paper, two papers, and three papers. Okay, in the past 4 years. Okay, that's a number. That's three. Okay. Now, hopefully, I'll get a couple of pieces published next year, so that will move it to 5 papers in 5 years. So, but that's because my pipeline is already ongoing. Okay. So this is starting from zero. Okay. Now, how do you use this? First, let's talk publication a pipeline. So this will tell you that this tells me that I need to make sure that I'm on 7 papers a year, that I'm working, and this doesn't mean publishing. This means that I'm submitting seven things a year, or maybe I'm submitting the same paper twice, but you're submitting 7 things a year. Okay. So that's why I have this spreadsheet, right? That for me to be sure that I am doing this, I need to submit 7 papers a year. So that's your target. Okay. Secondly, mind your hit rate. So if your hit rate, so if you get a lot of stuff rejected in a year, then you need to be mindful of that and perhaps adjust. And next year, maybe send some of your very good papers to a mid-level journal so that you increase your hit rate, right? Now, on capacity, so obviously that may also mean, you can decide, try to find people with whom to co-author a paper so that, you'll see, okay, so I cannot do this 7 papers this year because I'm collecting data for 2 projects or I'm teaching a lot or something. So also you can increase your capacity that way, but just make sure that you're hitting your target here. Okay. Also notice, and I think it's something important, that of all these things, the thing that you can control is capacity. So capacity is what you should focus on and measure. Don't measure, obviously it's important to have hit rate to decide where to send your papers next year, but don't stress about hit rate. Don't stress about rejection. You cannot control this, okay? You cannot control this. What you can control is capacities, how many papers that you write, okay? So, final way you can use this is for your career. Okay, so there was a point in my career that I realized that I can do more than 1-2 papers per year because I was still learning to write. And so what I did is I quit my job in a research school and I went to a teaching school, because in the teaching school they didn't care how much you published, so I had time. And having time basically means that it's okay to have 0.5 outputs because your capacity is only 1. Like, 1 paper every 5 years because your capacity is only 1. That's okay. Okay? So this is also about career decisions, right? So for example, at ESAG, I'm basically on target with this. So sometimes it gets a little bit stressful. Like I needed the paper that I published in January to be on my target. So I think like ESAG is a good fit for me for my capacity and my output. You know, for example, if I got offered the job at, you know, at HEC in Paris or in Seattle or Oxford, so on, I wouldn't take it because I know it's above what I can put out, you know, and I don't really care about prestige. I care about being able to do and quality work, not using shortcuts to publications, and do work that I'm proud of. And so, and I like, you know, I mean, I like interesting data. So, you know, I have a category 3, so a very small journal paper on this data on choir maestros that I love, and I really enjoyed writing that paper. And I think it's data that should see the light of day. So yeah. So I mean, this can also like really help, really help your career. Overall, my big advice from this is please be realistic and pessimistic, especially on your capacity and hit rate. Don't be over optimistic on this. Okay, things will fall. I mean, you know, my advisor at MIT, Van had papers rejected after she was full professor. You know, I mean, be realistic about this, okay? And about your capacity, which again you can increase with co-authors. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful in your planning of the next academic year. If you're watching the video on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. If you like the video, just leave a comment. I occasionally do get comments from people, and that makes me very happy. So if you want to make me happy, it's very easy. Check out the website, and that's it. Thanks so much, everybody, and I wish you a wonderful afternoon and rest.